The streets of Caracas are calm at this hour, even though on Tuesday afternoon the Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez announced the mobilization of over 200,000 between soldiers and members of the militia to respond to what he says is an imperialistic threat from the United States. Now sources are telling CNN that the White House is yet to make a final decision on whether to conduct strikes against the drug facilities in this country. But the government of authoritarian President Nicolás Maduro is taking that threat very, very seriously. Today's the day where Nicolás Maduro's supporters are coming out in force to respond to what they say is an imperialistic threat from the United States. The people around me are from the state of Monagas. They say that they've traveled all night to arrive here in Caracas to respond to what they believe is an aggression by the United States. ¿Por qué llegaron aquí desde Monagas, desde tan lejos?
Bueno, porque la juventud venezolana está aquí para apoyar a nuestro presidente Nicolás Maduro por la gestión que ha venido realizando aquí en nuestro país y porque estamos agradecidos porque ha sido un gran presidente que ha tomado a la juventud en cuenta con todo, con los proyectos, nos dio una primera consulta.
This march is for young people, students, university students, and Andrea here just next to me said that Nicolás Maduro, in her opinion, is supportive of young people causes and they are here to show their support. It's not that Nicolás Maduro is extremely popular in Venezuela. However, this shows that the government still controls a base of support, especially outside of Caracas. For CNN, this is Stefano Pozzebon, Caracas.
We support Venezuela. We'll go out to the streets to defend our homeland with tooth and nail.
We are receiving the call from the President of the Republic to defend our homeland. The problems of Venezuelans should be resolved by Venezuelans. I do not pass comment on the domestic problems of a foreign country. We come from the state of Guyana Esquiva. We traveled 19 hours. We arrived at 7 in the morning. It was an experience getting here. But here we are, the youth always present.
I feel worried because this affects everything. There is a lot of tension. The United States should not interfere in this manner. I think it's an abuse.
I'm Atra El-Nashar in Washington. Tensions between the United States and Venezuela are rising quickly as both countries ramp up their military postures in or near Venezuela. The Trump administration says it's focused on counter-narcotics, but there are real questions about whether the U.S. will launch strikes inside the country. As America's growing military presence near Venezuela draws closer, Nicolás Maduro's government is mobilizing its own forces.
¡Despliega todo el personal!
Videos like this showing the beginning of what will be massive military exercises involving 200,000 troops in the air, land, and sea.
We will continue in our determination to prepare ourselves to defend our homeland in all areas. Whatever the threat, its intensity, its proportion, etc.
This came shortly after the U.S. military announced the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, with 4,000 sailors aboard, led by the world's largest aircraft carrier, entered Southern Command Tuesday.
On the U.S. side, it's plainly too large for a pure counter-narcotics operation. On Venezuela's side, I think the Maduro regime is sort of trying to simultaneously show resolve, but also not poke the bear too much.
The Pentagon says these forces will enhance and augment existing capabilities to disrupt narcotics trafficking and degrade and dismantle transnational criminal organizations. Since early September, on almost a weekly basis, the U.S. has carried out lethal strikes on boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific that the Trump administration says were transporting drugs to the United States. Like these two suspected drug boats hit Sunday. The Pentagon says 6 people were killed. On Tuesday, news broke that the United Kingdom is suspending sharing intelligence about suspected drug boats in the Caribbean with the United States.
The UK is potentially having concerns about the legality or the ethics, or the optics, for that matter, of U.S. strikes on drug boats.
The UK may also be concerned about what the Trump administration could do next.
They want to cooperate, but they don't want to be complicit I think, in a regime change operation or in unilateral U.S. military attacks on Venezuela.
Colombia also halting its intelligence sharing with the U.S. Now, President Trump has maintained that regime change is not his goal, but he's also confirmed he authorized covert CIA operations inside Venezuela. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar.
In our world lead right now on a U.S. Navy ship, the U.S. is holding 2 survivors of a U.S. strike on an alleged drug-filled submarine in the Caribbean. This according to President Trump. It would be the 6th known strike, the first that didn't kill everyone on board. In the same week, Trump publicly declared he authorized the CIA to operate inside Venezuela to crack down on drug trafficking and migrants. This afternoon, the president had this colorfully worded message for the Venezuelan strongman leader, Nicolás Maduro.
He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to fuck around with the United States.
So joining us now is retired U.S. Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. I won't ask you about that language from the president, but I will be asking you about what the United States is doing. The U.S. Navy is deploying about 4,000 more Marines and sailors to patrol waters around Latin America and the Caribbean. Maduro is rolling out a new defense plan, reportedly mobilizing his own military, police, and militias. Could movements like this mean that both countries are preparing for potentially a larger conflict?
Yeah, Bianna, that unfortunately is often historically the case, that when countries mobilize their forces, here we have some Marines getting ready for a training mission, and here we have the Venezuelan National Guard, and they are moving into what looks like a training mission as well. So these are the kinds of things that we have to watch out for, because as troops deploy to areas, we've got about 4,000 U.S. troops in and around Venezuela right now. That could be a telltale sign that they're trying to do something. And once those wheels are set in motion, sometimes it's very hard to stop them.
So let's zoom out for a minute here, because Trump says Venezuela is, quote, feeling heat. Can you explain for our viewers why this focus specifically on Venezuela?
So there's several different factors here, Bianna, but one of them is Tren de Aragua. This is a group that President Trump talks a lot about. They started in Venezuela, but they are in many other places. They also operate here in the United States. One of the things that they do is very clearly and very badly human trafficking. They also do target migrants as part of that human tracking effort. Money laundering is also one of the key elements that they do, and probably most importantly to the U.S. administration is drug smuggling. So that's one aspect of it right there. Then you've got the military aspect. There are many air bases that the Venezuelans have, but these are 2 of the main ones, El Libertador and Lieutenant Teniente Vicente Landeeta Gil Air Force Base. They are in this part of Venezuela, and what they have are F-16s, American-made F-16s, and Russian-made Su-30s. So there is military power in Venezuela, and part of it is, of course, supported by Russia and also by Cuba. The other thing about Venezuela is they have oil, and one of the key elements of that is what is called the Orinoco Belt. There's several different factors here. Venezuela had a lot of oil in the Maracaibo region off to the west here, but they also have a lot of oil potentially in these parts. Plus, they also have a potential dispute with Guyana in the Essequibo region.
Yeah, it used to be one of the richest countries in the world, given their oil reserves. I do want to ask you and get your take on the head of the U.S. Southern Command stepping down. This is Admiral Alvin Halsey, who led operations in the Caribbean for only a year. And sources are telling CNN that he and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth did not see eye to eye. This is a high-profile resignation during an incredibly tense time, as you've just laid out. How unusual is that?
It is very unusual. Usually when tensions ramp up in a particular theater that is a theater of potential conflict, the person in charge of that combatant command, in this case Southern Command, would stay on in the job and see things through. But what is clear to me about Admiral Halsey stepping down is that there must be some policy disagreement going on here. And one of the key factors is that these attacks against the little ships that we've seen off the Venezuelan coast, they may not quite fit in with the construct of the laws of war. And that's a key factor and could have resulted in his early retirement.
All right. Colonel Cedric Leighton, thank you so much. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Bianna.